Hello to the Speakertunity community and everyone else who is watching. We have a guest here, Billy Arcement. Before we get to that, let me share with you a little bit what we're doing. Every week at this time, we're going to be bringing on some coaches and speaking experts and others to share knowledge and tools and techniques and strategies to be a better speaker, get on more stages, and all the things that speakers new and old want to learn. So that's our mission here, and this is our first episode. So thank you, Billy, for being willing to test it out for us.
Right.
And hopefully you will survive the experience. I expect you will. It's pretty safe.
Yeah.
Yep. So our guest is Billy Arcement. He teaches leadership skills with Cajun Candor. He's coming to us live from Southern Louisiana. He is a prolific author. He's written 6 books. He also writes a monthly column on leadership for the American Business Journal that distributes it to 44 journals across America. His clients include corporate association and government leaders throughout the United States. Billy's refreshing sincerity, great humor, knowledge, and genuine caring for people are his brand. He has the unique ability to make the complex simple. With thought-provoking and insightful ideas, his Cajun stories help to drive the points of his message. Learning and laughter, a winning combination every audience has come to love. Let's welcome Billy Arcement. Billy, how you doing?
How does that sound, Michael? Thank you for that great introduction.
Yes, thanks for being here. So the idea of this show is for our audience of speakers in the community to share some things they can learn to get on more stages, to be more effective on stages. And so tell us about your connection with the world of speaking.
Well, my professional career many moons ago was really a teacher at the high school level and a coach. I joined the National Speakers Association 43 years ago. And that was after being exposed to a lot of NSA speakers in management groups that I belonged to and would bring speakers in. I actually hired Cavett Robert, who is the founder of NSA, to speak to a management group that I belonged to in Baton Rouge. This was with my work when I was in the private sector. And I guess the stimulus of meeting Cavett and other really great speakers kind of motivated me to get back to my teaching skills. Mm-hmm. So I call it teaching, but I'm giving a test and grading papers. So I began in earnest with a free seminar in my little hometown that I lived in at the time. And I had 3 people show up. It was free. Remember that. It was just 3 people. So It was a humbling beginning, but I gave them everything that I had prepared for. And eventually things began to happen. And I literally spoke 20 years on a part-time basis because I had a pretty good job in the private sector. I had 4 kids to raise and educate. So the motivation to keep money coming in on a regular basis was pretty high. So after 20 years of part-time speaking, many places around the country, actually, and I actually, when I was still working, did my first presentation abroad. I went to China, and I was one of the 3 featured speakers in Beijing and in Hong Kong. So that was a pretty good experience.
Wow.
And I will tell your speaker friends to maybe understand the lesson that I taught myself by accident. I debated for many months what I should do to a group of communist leaders. What do I tell those guys? I'm not a communist. I don't believe in the philosophy, yet they're going to be in my audience. After wrestling for months, I finally said, you know what? I'm going to tell them what they need to hear. I'm going to tell them the truth, and they can process it as they wish. Hopefully not keep me in China because I offended them. But I thought truthfulness and honesty was the best approach. So I had a small audience of about 30 to 40 capitalist thinking communists, believe it or not. who manage chemical plants or facilities that manufacture things like refrigerators or appliances, and just a whole variety of things. But they were all the CEOs of their enterprise. And what was very interesting when I took a break, because we had an interpreter, I would say a line, my interpreter would tell it to the audience, and about half could understand English, and the other half I could tell by the reaction to my words, whether they heard me the first time or the second time. But we took a break about midway, and here's the question I got for the first time, and then 4 other times in the rest of the tour in China. Other speakers got the same question: how can I motivate my workers? I thought that was an extremely interesting question, given the nature of what I knew about China. But it also speaks quite well to something that I teach in management, that to get a motivated employee, you've got to match a skill set with a job set, meaning that whatever I do for a living, I got to like doing it. I've got to have an affinity for it. And the analogy I used to the Chinese leaders was based on the observation that I had in my brief stay, because Beijing was the first city, and this was the first time that I encountered this question. I said, don't put a guy planting rice who wants to be a bricklayer building buildings. And don't put a bricklayer who wants to lay brick planting rice. And the analogy means that put people where they want to be and where they enjoy being. And I got an amazing reaction to that question. Shocked to live it, you know what, out of me. It was all American, meaning that this wasn't a communist reaction. This was the capitalistic, normal American audience reaction. So that convinced me at that point in my life, and that was 1983, so it's very long ago, that being honest with people, telling them the truth, is really the best way to speak and share a message on stage.
So instead of trying to search for what you think the audience wants to hear, say what you think the audience needs to hear, and just go for that.
Yeah,
100%.
Given the purpose of your message, and I'm not talking about being a propagandist of any sort.
Right.
Know your audience, which is very important for speakers listening. Know your audience, do your research, understand as quickly as you can what they're about and what they're searching for. And then if you can provide the answer to that search, you're a hero. You're a guy or a gal that the audience will love. So research your audience would be the first tip that I would share with your listeners. If you don't know your audience, you could give the entirely wrong answer to impossible questions they don't have. So the more you know about your audience, and I learned that when I started teaching school, I knew the name of every student, and I taught about 150 kids a day. I knew the name of my students within 1 week. And that was my goal, that every kid that I taught, I knew who they were, first and last name. And I began to build that relationship with them as their teacher, as their educator, as their authority figure, obviously. So be the authority in a sense that you're recognized as knowing what you know, and then establish that relationship, build that camaraderie that people are looking for in your audience. And once you do that, you begin to have trust coming out. You begin to have confidence in you. And the overall effect is pretty positive.
Yeah, I like that concept. And I really like this idea of the being authentic, know your audience and craft your message to them, but make it your message. You're not,
yes.
You don't go to China to talk to them about communism.
No.
And I will point out that in the years after you spoke to them, they became more that capitalist communist hybrid, which I assume was a lot from what they learned from you.
Right. I was the stimulus, correct. But seriously, I spoke to Hong Kong audience of about 150 managers and leaders from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most memorable things in my 43 years of being in front of audiences, I had Dr. Henry Lee, remember his name like I remember my own name, who stood up after my presentation in front of the entire audience and dedicated a poem in my honor for the message. That was very humbling and very, very touching moment. And it proved to me again that if you have the right message, no matter where you are in the world, because we had 150 people from literally across the globe in the audience, everybody resonated with the message because it was the truth. It was applicable to their situation, and it was delivered with a sincerity. I hope that they picked up that I'm not BSing. You know, I'm truthful. And that eventually led to where I am now with my branding. I use the Candid Cajun as my branding name. And it's because I'm Cajun, obviously. But more importantly, is that I am very candid as a manager. People that worked for me for the almost 30 years that I was in senior management in the chemical manufacturing business, I spoke the truth to them. Sometimes it was tough. Sometimes it was not what I wanted to say, but what I had to say. And I think the same thing goes with your audience. It's what do you have to tell them that they really need to hear? It's not a love fest. You're not out there to be loved. Being loved is the after effect of giving the right message.
Yep.
So I think it's important that, as we said earlier, know your audience and know the message they need to hear today. And that involves a lot of research.
Yep.
Oh, and one last thing I want to say, that I'll let you answer that question. I'm trying to remember who said this. It was a fairly successful professional speaker. It may have been Cavett himself. He said, how did he say that? Oh, I know. He said, your speech is your brochure. Okay? Which means that it is the best advertisement that you can have. Do a good presentation, and all that comes from being prepared, as we talked about earlier. So for speakers who are listening to this broadcast, be authentic and be ready, be truthful, and give the best darn speech you can, because that is what gets you the next speech or the next message or presentation.
Yeah, no, I love that that concept. And I used to work for a company that when they had their annual conference, they would say, we don't want to have happy meetings. Like, yeah, you should be happy at the meeting, but you don't want to have one of those events where during the event you're all rah rah rah, and then you get back to work on Monday and we want you to learn something. We want you to actually change your habits, change your strategies, not just have a lot of cheering and jumping up and down. It has to really mean something. And same thing, like you were saying, you don't just want to go there and be loved because you say things that make people say, yeah, I feel good. You want that create some transformation, that create some impacts. They're better after the speech than they were before. And that's why they love you.
Yeah, I would tell my students on the very first day for the brief, I only taught 6 years. I couldn't afford it. So I left. But I would tell them, I am not here to be your friend. I will be your friend, but that isn't my purpose. My purpose is to challenge you and develop your knowledge base so that you become proficient at the subject that I'm teaching you. Friendship is the outcome. Friendship is not my intent. Teaching you and helping you learn is my intent. So, and I use the same approach with my audience. I love to be their friend, but that's not why I'm there. You know, they need to hear a message, and I'm happy to deliver it most of the time, anyhow.
And that's some powerful advice for how to get booked to that next speech and to do that. Now, for people who are maybe getting started and aren't getting a lot of stages, would you have advice for how they can get onto their first stages?
Well, I'll give you what worked for me.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have to market, call people, be willing to get a no to eventually reach a yes. Start with your friends. Ask your friends, who do they know that you might approach? And could you maybe give me an introduction if it's somebody that you know well enough and you are comfortable enough doing that? I started off in the teacher ranks because I was a teacher. So I did a few programs for teachers. I did a few programs for local businesses, people that knew me. I didn't require an introduction to them. They trusted me, and I just begged my way into an audience with them. And then I was cheap too. I wasn't charging a whole lot of money, so they could afford me. I would say a strategy I've used forever is writing. If you can, one of the best, I guess, projects that I ever had, I wrote for the Baton Rouge Business Report, which is a business journal in Baton Rouge. And I got on by accident. Jeffrey Gittimer. Do you know of Jeffrey?
Is he the Rainmakers? No, he's the Little Red Book.
Yes, the Little Red Book, right. Well, I talked to Jeffrey. He was on that. He was in that business journal. He had an article on sales in the business journal. So I talked to him at an NSA meeting, and I said, "How did you do that?" You know, and he said that he got on the phone and began just pushing his articles and things like that. So I called the Baton Rouge Business Report, gave them a sample article, and they hired me. They paid me $100 an article, and I said, "Look, I do this for free." And the guy said, "No, we pay you, we pay Jeffrey, we pay everybody." So I did that for 2 years, and I generated a lot of business in the Baton Rouge community from my management articles. So writing has been good to me from that perspective. Then eventually they let me go because they got staff writers, and they let Jeffrey go. So I felt pretty good. If Jeffrey went out the door, I was happy to follow him and not be intimidated by being fired. You know what I'm saying? So I write articles for the business journals. It goes around the country. Candidly, I don't really get a whole lot of business from that. You know, it's not as been as lucrative as it would seem. Yet my articles have blossomed in certain cities. I remember one in Denver that went berserk. I mean, the paper called me and said, "What the heck did you do?" You know, and I didn't have no clue what I did. But I hit a hot topic, apparently, in the Denver area. I've had a hot topic in Buffalo, New York. I've had hot topics in a variety of cities across the country, but no business to speak of. And I think it's because I don't have a byline that says, "Call Billy at this number." Here's his website. So what I started doing is cheating a little bit, and I kind of implant some, in my website or on my website, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of give a little hint of where else you can find me. And we'll see how that works. I started doing that really in the last year. But I enjoy doing it. It's a great way to stretch my knowledge base. And it's a great feedback on, am I giving the right message to an audience that reads what I write? So it's a validation. So writing has been a good avenue for me. If you can't write, find somebody who can. Buy Grammarly. Grammarly is a great screening device for getting you English a little bit better. I use Grammarly for everything. Because even a simple article, I'll run it through Grammarly. Because sometimes they give you a little hint. Sometimes the hint's not right, and I ignore it. But overall, it's a great software to proofread your writings. The other thing I've done, I give a lot of free presentations. And what you do is pick your free presentation so that people in the audience that you're speaking to for no fee can hire you for a fee. So be selective of the audiences, but go after some free presentation. I still do that today. I'm not speaking as much as I used to, for just personal reasons. I've done this for 43 years, as I told you. In my day job for 20 years, when I was part-time, I traveled all over the United States and many foreign countries. So I really don't want to get on an airplane today. I will do it. I will do it. Let me not say I won't do it. But that isn't my preference. So my focus now is to stay within driving distance of my home if I can. Although I was in California in January. So, I won't say no or never, but I'm just a little bit more selective and just not as active as I used to be. I used to say half speech will travel many moons ago. And I did that for over 40 years. But I'll do some traveling. It just depends on the venue and where the process is. I love an audience. I love being in front of my audiences. It's a high without drugs. Without drugs, you know what I'm talking about.
I know all about that. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a great love. I'm a teacher. I really am a teacher. I decided when I was 13 that I wanted to teach, and I never wavered from that until I got a few paychecks and kids. And then I said, it's time to find a better way. It's just not working.
Yep.
And I mean, my first job in the chemical business, I started off as a chemist. And when the guy told me what he paid me and the benefits I had, I was like, really? I could not believe it. You're going to give me 2 weeks paid vacation? You're going to pay me overtime for anything over 8 hours? I'm working 100 hours a week as a coach and a science teacher on 3 different classes: general science, biology, and chemistry. I taught 150 kids a day, and I coach football, basketball, and track. I worked 100 hours a week, literally, for 6 years that I taught school.
Wow.
And when I went in the private sector and the guy said, if you work over 40 hours a week, we'll pay you time and a half. I'm like, really? There is I had no idea. It was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. So I regretfully feel that I would have maybe made an impact teaching school. But I've spoken to audiences literally across the country and gotten tremendous feedback from people who read my articles or my book. So I know I'm making a difference and I'm helping, and that's really who I am and what I want to do.
Oh, very good. Well, so we're coming up on the top of the hour, but so I got your website that you sent me here. Searching for.
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to make sure you got that byline with a
This
is
the last book. I'm gonna be a little. This is my last book. I think I've hit on something, and my motivation is to really capitalize on this book. But respect, relationship building, and culture, from my analysis of the business world, are critical to an organizational success. I was really studying a lot about culture several years ago, and then I literally stumbled on the beginning of a book I had written that I had no clue I had done that. And I started off with respect. And what saved me is I have a folder with new products or prospective product ideas. And I was looking through it for some idea. And when I saw the thing on respect, I had written several thousand words on respect. And then I started thinking about what else is important to build a business. Relationships being critical. And then I had been studying culture. And for me, culture is probably the most important things that a business needs to think about today. The book just evolved from that. I'm very proud of this book. It took me a long time to write it, and it took me a lot of grief to correct it and update it. But now I got to sell it, which was probably backwards. You should try to sell your book before it gets published. But I'm not a perfect student, so anyhow.
Yep.
But that's what I think. That's where I'm going to focus my energies now. My whole entire website, if you go to it, it's built on respect, relationships, and culture. And the book is the center of the whole message that radiates out on my business today. And I can apply that in any venue. I can do it in a religious vein. I can do it in a corporate vein. I can do it in an educational vein. So I've got a lot of versatility that I can go with. So this has kind of been where I am with my message today. I want to spread that message. And I'm working a little bit in the religious side, kind of a new focus. I'm Catholic by birth, not by accident. I mean, I was born into it. And I have a great deal of affinity for my faith. And I want to do a little bit in that arena. It's kind of a new arena for me. I've done some past presentations, but I want to do it around these three factors of respect, relationships, and culture.
Very nice.
I'm doing a parenting book that I started probably 20 years ago and never finished. Kind of got deviated with some other projects. So I'm coming back to it. I did a parenting newsletter for 7 years. So I have 84 issues. And I've just compiled them into about a 60,000 word document right now. And I'm culling it down and trying to decide how I'm going to format it. By the end of the year, I hope to have it done. And it's basically teaching your child to succeed. That's the core message. What do I do as a parent to help your kids succeed? I've got 4 of them that I can use as testimony. All of my children are pretty successful in their own right. They're professionals, and they have a good work ethic. They have all the good things that I would like to see in an employee who work for me. And I'm just real proud of how they've approached life with their children and in their careers. So
well,
I think I can say they've been successful. And thank you.
I could talk about parenting and speaking all that for hours, but unfortunately, we are at the end of our time. People can find you at Searching for Success. And thank you so much for sharing your stories and your advice and tips. And I know I found it valuable, and I'm sure our audience has as well. And people can, of course, find you at the link down there at the bottom. And then, of course, for our speaker community, if you're looking for more stages, Speakertunity does offer directories, resources, help booking speeches, help getting your bio set up, all the things you need to get yourself on a stage as well. So, Billy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Same here, Michael. Thanks so much for asking me. This is the first program. Is that what I heard you say earlier?
It's the first one, yes.
If you get number 2, I'll feel good.
Okay, yeah.
If you never get another one, I'll feel bad.
We're booked for 6 weeks, so 4 weeks.
Okay,
so
good.
We'll get at least 4. Yep.
Thank you.
All right,
anytime.
Thank you.
All right.
And don't go away yet when I go offline.